at this stage.
Aparna and Preeti, not about.
Hi, everyone. We're obviously looking at down the barrel of the plan, as we call it. England were emphatic in their victory today. It's hard to believe the way that these matches have gone. They've been quite, you would argue, one-sided each time. And it probably will continue. This is, again, Norman Koshnik here for Eyes on Cricket with Norman Koshnik. We have Chris Vernon with us at the moment. I believe that Debashis will be here very, very soon. He was caught up the match review in his own work, but he's very graciously going to join us. So thanks for persisting with time. I know it's late, especially in India, but it's also rather an unusual sort of times all over the world. I think the only comfortable time it is actually where Chris is, who has joined us. You are at about a tidy time of the early evening, I believe.
26. So, yeah, about dinner in an hour, and then, bedtime in a couple of hours, I'm sure.
And I see Adam Hollyoaks joined us. I should say Chris fan club.
There's no way he's up at 4 in the morning, Norman.
He could be up doing his mixed martial arts. We don't know. Virat Kohli, just quickly, before we get into the superlatives about the England side, they were in a pretty bit of a mess, but Kohli at least brought it up to a moderately acceptable scoreline, but it wasn't sufficient on the night. It's a bit hard to comprehend how these games are going in terms of the way that we've gone from an England victory, which was rather emphatic, to an Indian victory, which is rather emphatic, now back to an England victory that's rather emphatic. You'd almost have to predict that the next match, depending on the toss, could well be India's way, leading into an amazing fifth T20I.
Yeah,
Great.
I actually have a question for my Indian fans, and it's a shame Preeti and Debashis aren't here because it's an interesting one. And we'll get on to it because we'll talk about the team selection, I'm sure. But I think that India, the BCCI, will be really disappointed that this ground. It seems to be that the toss is basically dictating the outcome of the game. And I think that there's a big problem if they're going to host a T20 World Cup and the final being here. Did they really want to host a World Cup where the side that wins the toss probably is going to win the game? I think that would be a real disappointment. The dew factor clearly has an effect. Clearly, the pitch gets better to bat on. You saw that Kohli really struggled for the first half of his innings, and then the pitch obviously zipped up, quickened up a little bit, and got easier to bat on. And then England never really looked in any danger at all. They walked it. It was literally a stroll in the park. I think. They didn't even ever really try and put the foot on the gas. So the ICC and the BCCI really have to try and come up with a way that if they want to play games at this ground, how they can counteract the toss. Because imagine playing a World Cup final in front of 130,000 people and the side that wins a toss is probably going to win the game. I think that'd be a real shame.
I totally agree. And as Simon Willis described the ground previously, they've got certain pitches to experiment. Supposedly the soil has been dealt a card throughout the whole of the pitch square. I think, I'm sorry, I find that ludicrous that they've done that. I really do. If you're going to do that on a separate location and test away and practice away.
I think other Indian grounds do it. I think Chennai has some red and black soil wickets. I might be completely wrong. I know it's red soil. They play the test matches on, but I think they have other soil there as well. I might be wrong. I mean, I'm probably wrong on that one, but I think that it is the case on some of the other grounds as well.
Okay, I'm not aware of that at all, to be really honest. This is a relatively new ground, and the actual surface would have been addressed as a new ground. So,
yeah,
I haven't heard of that before, and I'm only assuming this is the case here. We don't have that in Australia. We have high performance centres, as in Brisbane. I don't believe it's in Adelaide, but Brisbane have got that in an indoor centre where you've got different wickets for practice, which fine, but not on the main square. I find that. I'm sorry, I don't think it's good either way. I really, really find that rather bizarre. And if that is the case, and because I don't know much about that side of it, if that is the case, we've got ourselves a real problem. And you're right, it's a bit hard to work out. I mean, if it's that different, you can change the complexion of the game very quickly by deciding on a different wicket in the same series.
Yeah.
It seems to me that that's ICC shouldn't be accepting that, and especially if it's the main ground in the country now. I'm assuming that's the way they're going to look at Ahmedabad, being the sheer size of it, that we've got ourselves a problem.
Yeah,
Unless both sides know it's going to be that way and there's an agreement that this is the wicket to be used, therefore gives them some sort of preparation from a choice. And I don't know. It just seems to me that we've had 3 games now that are almost completely different in terms of results. And even though a toss is a part of that, it shouldn't be that clear cut. So anyway, Ahmed's saying, Chris, come on, we lost 4 tosses in England and lost 4 test matches.
Different scenarios. Test cricket in England, compared to one-day cricket or 2020 cricket in India this time of year in the day-night, it's completely different. The test matches that India lost, it was unfair on India. I think it flattered England in that series, and there would be cricket. Here, I think they said it's in the last 5 years in IPL and Pakistan Super League cricket, the side chasing have won 65% of the time, and I bet that's probably more 75% in the last 2 years. So, it's clearly a factor. And we're talking chalk and cheese Test cricket in England. Whether or not they decide they should play it all-day games, start at midday, like the Test matches, maybe that would bring, it clearly keeps the wicket. Clearly, in my opinion, the wicket is quite a difficult wicket to bat on. As every side batting first has demonstrated, it's clearly a really tricky wicket to bat on. And it's just when the dew factor comes in, it just puts a bit of zip and a bit of life into the wicket that makes it easy to score. And that's clearly quite evident. But it's just a shame that the toss is having such an impact on a quality cricket series, really.
Yeah, we've been joined by Debashis. Now, I'm very happy that he's here because at least the India contingent has been represented. And I'm sorry about the late start to Debashis, but it's late where you are, I'm assuming. It's now, well, what time is it there? It's
11:58 in India. 11:15.
Well, it's 4:45 a.m. where I am, and Chris
I can ask my question I've got a question for Debashis and for the Indian viewers, which is interesting because I've done a little research on this afternoon, and I think Debashis is I think he probably agrees with me slightly. Why does everyone in India automatically think that Rohit Sharma should be picked above KL Rahul in 2020 cricket? What stats or what records or what has he done to prove that he's better than KL Rahul in 2020 cricket?
His record speaks for himself. I don't have the stats right now in front of me. Had you told me earlier, I definitely would have had it in front of me. But definitely his record speaks for himself. He's a better batsman than KL Rahul, and he has been cricket phenomenal in white ball cricket.
Okay, you should check the stats because I looked at it earlier. In 2020 internationals, KL Rahul's played 50 games, averages 45, which is over 13 runs more than Sharma, at a better strike rate. In IPL cricket, KL Rahul averages 12 runs more and at a better strike rate. So in every 2020 record you look at, KL Rahul averages over 10 runs an innings more than Rohit at a better strike rate.
But going by his form in this series, obviously 1 run in 3 matches.
Mm-hmm. But my point is they should both be opening the batting, and I can see why India is sticking with him because historically and on form and in his career, he's a class above everyone else. You can see why they're persisting with him because he's quality.
Okay, can I just make a point there before Debashis gets off? How many IPL championships has KL Rahul?
So we're talking about the IPL championship doesn't matter when you're opening a batting for India, does it?
Okay, just take it. Let me finish. What about how many results have gone in India's favour when Rahul has been in the side?
I'm just saying, KL Rahul's played 50 games for India and averages 45 in 2020 internationals. That's staggering, really. I reckon that's up there with probably the best in the world. On stats alone, that's probably the best in the world at that level.
Okay.
IPL form, he averages 12 runs more over 90 games, so it's a good sample. My point is, and I think they both should be opening the batting. I think that they're comfortably the best two. And you can see why Kohli and the team want to persist with them to open the batting. Form is different, but I don't think they're worried about form in this series because the World Cup is more important and they need him firing for the World Cup.
Yeah, okay. I'm a bit bemused today to see Ishan Kishan, a youngster who did so well on his debut match, was not opening the batting for India today because he did so well in the last match. So one would have assumed that he would be persisted with opening the batting with Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul, with his decent technique. He should be at number 4, but this because this doesn't do justice for the youngster as well, because you give him confidence, you show him that confidence by sending him at the top, and then the next match he comes in at number 3, and oh boy, means what have you to say about Mark Wood, because he has been the difference between both sides today. Means
absolutely
we could see what an extra bit of pace can do in this format. When with Mark Wood and Jofra Archer, there was no respite, and along with Chris Jordan. So I think England is definitely making a point here in this series, with seven more months to go before the T20 World Cup. I think they are definitely one of the favorites for this tournament.
Okay. I said before the match, and I still stick by this, India's likely, if they win the toss the next match, to come out and thump England. I'm sorry. The way that these matches have gone, you can't be certain of anything until we actually get to the last match, when it'll be a do or die effort. If the toss goes the way that, I can't predict the toss, but if India make hay with the toss, they'll win, and we'll have a two-all result with an amazing last match. It's been too much chalk and cheese. Okay, you're defending Rahul here, Chris. I get that, but he's just hit what? Duck one, duck, or duck one, duck.
No, I completely agree. All my point is everyone jumping on saying he shouldn't be playing, and why is Kohli and the team persisting with him? I can tell you why, because ultimately they don't care about this series. They want to win it, but if you said to them now, you lose this series, but KL Rahul, because he's playing, will go out and be man the tournament and win us a World Cup. If you lose a series, and because you stick with him and show some faith, he'll have a World Cup, the best player in the World Cup, they would take it because they know how good he is. And I think that looking at both sides, and I said this before the start of the series, I said this morning, India's bowling attack in this series is the difference. I don't see India defending a score, whereas I think I could see Archer, Wood and Jordan. They could, if England batted first, I think there's more chance of them defending the score because they've got a bit more firepower and a bit more of that X factor in the bowling attack. But India have got Bumrah, Shami, Jadeja to come back. I'm just saying for this series. So it's a great series. It's just a shame. I think if Mark Wood hadn't played today, I think the result would have been the same. I think that there's just a massive thing about chasing. It just seems the wicket clearly is pretty tricky. You saw Kohli sending signals back saying it was a bit up and down, a bit too paced. Clearly that dew factor, and I'm not saying it's massive, clearly it just zips the pitch up a bit and makes it a lot easier to play shots on.
Yeah, I'm not denying any of what you said, but Rashid, his figures as a spinner have been pretty damn good today in terms of the economy rate. Didn't take a wicket, but his economy rate was particularly good as well. The way that if you look at the overall bowling unit of England is what is outstanding. Admittedly, Wood led the charge. Certainly, Archer's efforts are strong, but it is the overall bowling unit is doing a great job. Again, I know that England were in the box set when they batted, but India's bowling attack left a lot to be desired. I'm not impressed with Shardul at all. He didn't. He's again gone for over 10, so they have to look at him seriously. Washington Sundar, although he did take a wicket, didn't bowl too badly. There's something smelling about the Indian bowling line.
The problem with India's bowling attack is And bearing in mind, Shardul Thakur, everyone was singing his praise after the last game, so it's hard on one game to say that he's not good or he's just a bad game. But
no.
there's just there's no depth in Indian bowling. Like I think they said, Hardik Pandya's had a big back injury in his 20 previous T20 internationals. He's bowled 4 overs in all of the games, like combined, and now he's expected to bowl. I think that India, as a T20 unit, when everyone's fit, Hardik will be used as a 6th bowler, similar to Stokes and Curran. You know, you've got an option then. At the moment, they've got 5 bowlers and they have to bowl them all 4 overs. So there's no wiggle room. England have got, well, if Rashid gets hit, he can only bowl 2 overs. Or if Curran doesn't, Curran bowled 4 overs to 20 the other day. He only bowled 2 overs today. Stokes bowled 2 overs. So there's just a bit more flexibility. And that 6th bowling option really gives you some depth, the batters, do you not think?
Yeah, but then with Hardik starting to bowl, it opens up more options for the Indian team. As you can see, as you might agree with me, in Australia during the white ball series, he was not bowling in the first 2 matches, and then he was brought into the attack. He was forced to because the frontline bowlers were taken for a ride by the Australian batsman. Then he just changed the tide, which is bowling, and more is batting. So I think Hardik Pandya definitely adds more options, more flexibility to this Indian bowling. And as you have rightly mentioned, that with Jasprit Bumrah and Ravindra Jadeja coming into this bowling lineup, obviously, I was a little bit concerned that the team is not playing Deepak Chahar because he has been a brilliant bowler at the death, but I don't know what might be the reason because they are persisting with Shardul Thakur. I think we might definitely see Deepak Chahar playing in the next match because he's definitely a good bowler at the death with his variations. So I think he might be an option and as well. So see, in India have a lot to worry about with their bowling rather than their batting because I think their batting is more or less sorted. But with the absence of Jasprit Bumrah and Ravindra Jadeja, this bowling lacks stacked and Shami obviously. So this bowling definitely has a lot to do. With 2 more matches to go, and as Norman rightly said, that looking at the trend of this series, you win the toss. The captains are preferring to chase rather than putting up a total.
I think that India's side at the moment in this game, and we're only talking about this series, I know the bowlers will come back, is just not balanced very well. If you look at England's side, they've got 6 batters, 6 bowling options. I think that India's side looks a lot better if you take who batted at 6, Iyer out, because it allows, Iyer came in with 6, 7 overs today, and Hardik, then if he comes in then, if you can't win a 2020 game with top 6, you shouldn't be relying on your 7 and 8. They can play a cameo. But I think if India were to copy England's sort of setup and take Iyer out for the next game and put Deepak in, Hardik at 6, you've got Washington at 7, Thakur at 8, you've got proper batters there anyway to play a cameo. That then looks a lot better balanced because you've got 3 spinners or 2 spinners and then an extra seam option, which is where England have been strong because they don't have to worry that Stokes only bowled 2 bad overs, doesn't have to bowl 4 overs because Curran can bowl it. So I think that England have got a lot better team balance and that India would potentially look at that to take Iyer out of 6, but Hardik at 6, bring a bowler in, and it looks you've got 6 proper bowling options. If Hardik or Thakur bowl 2 poor overs, you've got someone else. You don't have to rely on them, and I think that's why England have done well in the games when they bowl well.
Okay, just a moment. I want to look at the Indian score for a moment. They were 5 for 86 after 14.3 overs. Okay, they ended up on 156, so effectively hit 70 runs in a bit over 5.5 overs. That was quite a magnificent end to an innings, considering where they were at. Do you agree? Kohli's done a great job in terms of bringing it up to what was a borderline respectable score, considering what's been going on in the previous matches. England, yet again, when they're in a situation where they're chasing with a certain score, they seem to be able to balance their batting to reach that score. I mean, again, Butler was fantastic today, but I don't know. Let's be honest. The chances of India coming out and doing a number on England next game is very likely, going on what we've seen so far in the series. But the last match will be the absolute crucial match to see how that goes. And I hate to see it only based on a toss. England are definitely a better side today, but what about the last match? Could you say that England were in the ascendancy in the last match? You can't. Overall, I think England are certainly ahead at the moment, but we've spoken this way after the first match. India turnaround has been quite different in the second match. I know the toss was relevant, but still, one constant at the moment is Kohli. Kohli's batted well in the last two innings, no matter what, who's batted first, hasn't he? Kohli really has shown an incredible ability to bat under both circumstances.
He's just showing why he's the best. Ultimately that he's. You asked me earlier who's the best player in the Indian team, and it's by miles. It's Virat Kohli. You can say Sharma, you can say Rahul, Rishabh Pant, but Kohli is streets ahead of anyone else in the world, in my opinion, across all three formats. In terms of 2020 cricket, I'm not saying there aren't fantastic players, but I think that Kohli is just the best, and he's demonstrated it again today. He's a captain's knock. The question for Debassis, actually, which we spoke about earlier, and it's a tricky one with Ishan Kishan because he's not an opening bat. I know he did well opening, but he's not going to open the batting in the IPL. It's going to be Rohit and Quinton de Kock. So I think that, and I predicted before the start, and Norman will back me up, that I thought Rahul and Sharma will open and then Kishan will bat at 3 or 4. And I just think that they're thinking, I know he did well, but he's not going to open at all again after the series in the IPL. Are we going to get more out of him, batting him at 3 or 4 and getting that practice in? Because that's where he's going to be batting in the IPL to come, and probably where they see him batting in the World Cup, if that makes sense.
Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense for Ishan to get more and more opportunity at number 3 or 4. Means that's where he bats normally for Mumbai Indians. But then, and when you have someone who made an outstanding debut in the last match, and he's a youngster, so why not try him for giving another go instead of sending him? That puts a lot of pressure on him, because in international cricket, if you chop and change your batting order, you need to have a stable batting order. So if you try, and he has nothing, and he is young, he ingests fresh blood, and so he has nothing to lose really. So because as he pointed out in the last match, because the team management, especially the senior guys like Kohli and Rohit Sharma, told him before he walked out to bat to go out and dare and express himself, bat freely, which he did. So why not give him another go? Who knows? He might have failed, but then that puts added pressure on the youngsters to open the batting on one location, and then immediately the next match you send him at number 3 against the likes of Mark Wood and Jofra Archer. Mark Wood was just. He was really, really quick. It's one ball he bowled at 150. So that's what can make the difference. And obviously the fact that he has been facing the likes of James Pattinson, Nathan Coulter-Nile, Trent Bolt at the Mumbai Indians net. But then that is IPL, and this is international match. So I think international match and IPL is hell lot of a difference. Obviously, the big positive for IPL is that this young generation of cricketers, they are ready. They are match ready when they are drafted into the international arena. But then I still wonder why was Ishan Kishan not promoted, not open the batting for India today, given the fact that he did so well in the last match.
I think it shows. I think that they see him being at his best in the middle order, like in the IPL. And I think it just shows you how high regard Kohli and the Indian selectors and the Indian team value KL Rahul. It shows how important.
No, I have nothing against KL Rahul. I have nothing against KL Rahul. No, he has been one of the brilliant batsmen.
What I'm saying is, I think that it shows how desperate they are for him to get back into form with the World Cup in mind, because I think that he could be a difference. Rahul,
with his technique, can be your number 4 batsman. With Kohli coming in at number 3, Rahul, he can anchor the innings. Means if India loses quick wickets, then he can anchor the batting in the middle with his technique and temperament, and also he has strokes to add to him. So why don't you send Rahul at number 4?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Okay, can I just quickly say something? And I know I've said it before, and you didn't agree with me, and I get it, but I maintain England's batting lineup throughout this series so far. Has the top 4 changed?
No.
At all? No. Okay. What's happened to the Indian batting lineup throughout this series so far?
Well, it has been mixed about. Yeah, of course.
And I'm sorry, that's fundamentally wrong. You might argue that we're experimenting for the purpose of the World Cup. I get that. But I'm actually quite annoyed by this, because if I was coach of this team, I would stick to a plan and try and work it and get that right. That's my experiment, is to get a settled batting lineup, because they've got the players to be settled, and they've changed. Dhawan gone, Ishan Kishan, which I understand why you bring him in, but everything else seems to be out of order. Kohli could bat well at any position. He could open, he could go first up, he could go second, he could put him anywhere. I believe there's something really wrong here. You've got the number 3 position of this batting lineup is extremely crucial, yet we've changed it every single innings, haven't we?
I think that India I think looking at the side and looking at the bowling, I think that they know the bowling attack that they'll have in the T20 World Cup. I think they know it's going to be Bumrah, Shami, Washington, Jadeja, and maybe Natarajan plus Hardik. I think that if you said to Shastri and Kohli now, what is your bowling? What's your 6 to 11 going to be? I reckon they could name all of them. Like, this is what it'll be. I think they're not too sure with the batting, and I think that's why they're going in with the extra batter and not playing the extra bowler to balance it. I think they're overloading the batting, picking 6 batters and trying out, because I don't think that they're sure what their best combination of batting lineup is. I know that Kohli will be there and Sharma will be there, but I don't think they know where is best to bat hand. I don't think they know who's going to open. They want it to be KL. They're not sure where Ishan Kishan. That makes sense. I think that they're using this series as a tryout to see if players can nail down a spot and get form, whereas England know what their side is. Let's face it, England know exactly what their team is. And so I think if India were going to pick a side now in a World T20 tomorrow with the current side, they'd probably get rid of a batter and pick another bowling option. I think they would want 6 bowlers. I think they're just trying to find a combination that looks like it could work. Because I don't think
I'm sorry. You don't. Sorry, I'm going to get a bit annoyed here. Since when playing for your country is an experiment? Since when do you perform here with experiments? I'm not happy with using this as an experiment. This is an international match of great importance. Are they trying to fox for that? I don't know, but I'm not happy with this. I don't believe
they're still picking a side that's good enough to win a game of cricket. They demolished England in the second game. You know, they're still picking a side that is a brilliant side. They're just trying to work out a combination that works to get the most out of it. You know, England did it with Bairstow. England have done it in the past with Adil Rashid open the bowling. They're trying to find a formula that works. It doesn't mean that side, they're just trying to find a side that, the Indian side, the batting line they picked today, could win a World T20. It's a brilliant top 6. They're just trying to find the way to get the most out of it, not just to get good out of it. And I get that. You know, there's bigger fish to fry this year. This series is a warm-up to a World Cup. You know, if
no, it's not. It's not a warm-up. This is a series between 2 teams.
But both sides would happily lose a series 5-0 if it means winning the World Cup. If England lost this series 5-0, but in the meantime
it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense whoever wins this series, because this series, talking about Indian perspective, is definitely it's been seen as try out various options, means who fits in the scheme of things. Obviously, it is a bit disappointed to see Surya Kumar Yadav not getting an opportunity, because he hardly got a chance in last match. He had nothing to do literally with Ishan Kishan and Kohli taking the match away, taking India home. But then when you have the guys like Ishan Kishan and Surya Kumar Yadav drafted in, then why don't you try them? Because Shreyas Iyer, we all know that he has got opportunity and he has done well in the last match as well. But then why don't you try someone like Surya Kumar Yadav? Because that is what the whole objective is, to try out a few batsmen who can fit into the scheme of things in the World Cup squad?
Okay,
I think that
I'm too old school. I'm way too old school, because whenever anyone played for their country, I'm giving Australia as my example, there was stability about the side. I hold very firm that as you play for your country in an international match, it is the most important match at the time. You should experiment whenever you want to, but not when you're coming to the match that counts.
Games change, and I agree with you, Norman. I think it's really poor rest and rotation, but I understand why you've got. It's gone are the days of you have 11, you have a best 11. You now have a squad of 15, and everyone in that squad. I thought Yadav was unlucky, Sky Yadav was unlucky, but I think that he was under the impression, or he'd have been told, Sharma is coming in for this third game. KL Rahul will be opening for the first 3 or 4, and therefore it's just how it goes. And I did well in the first game.
And I like to add to this. Obviously, with Rohit coming in, obviously India had no other options but to have either of them, either Ishan or Surya Kumar Yadav playing in the 11. In no way you could play both these batsmen in the playing 11. So with Rohit coming in, you have someone like Shikhar Dhawan sitting out. So there are plenty of options. So it's a bit unfortunate, but you have to accept it, because either you have to play Ishan Kishan or Surya Kumar Yadav. You cannot play both of them if Rohit comes into the playing 11.
Agreed. And to be fair, Norman, you're saying that they're rotating. Well, they're actually not. If you actually look at, they've stuck with KL Rahul. They're not just chucking him out and bringing someone else in. They're sticking with him and trying to give him, because they know he's their best opening bat with Rohit. They've made it perfectly clear.
I'm not actually talking about KL Rahul. I'm talking about.
I'm just saying they do have some consistency with it, and you just got to find a position. I think Kohli should be batting at 3. I don't see why on earth he's batting at 4. I guess Pant probably bats 5, Hardik at 7, and I'd be getting rid of I and Sky Yadav and bringing in a bowling all-rounder, someone like a Deepak Chahar who can bat, or you move Washington and Thakur up, because let's shut off Thakur and Washington Sundar are batting at 8 and 9 in 2020. It's just wasted. It's like batting Sam Curran at 9. What's the point? If you can't win, you get more out of having that bowling balance with 6 bowling options than you do with 5 and an extra batter, because India in the 2 games they've lost could have done with another option just to try it out. At the moment, they've got, it's not even like they've got a part-timer. They've got Rohit Sharma, who's never going to bowl. So I think that in the World Cup that you'll see 6 bowling options. I think most sides will want to go in with at least 6 options, and I think they're just seeing what their best batting lineup is at the moment, and they've made it perfectly clear that KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma, the 2 they want to open the batting. I think that's fundamental. That's blatantly obvious. Kohli has to bat 3, and then it's.
I think the 5 batsmen are more or less settled for the Indian team with the likes of Rohit Sharma, then KL Rahul, Virat Kohli, Shreyas Iyer, Rishabh Pant. I'm not too sure about Ishan Kishan at this time. Obviously, he had an outstanding debut. But then I think it's too early to because then you have number 6 in Hardik Pandya and number 7 Ravindra Jadeja. So I think these 7 are almost settled for the Indian team. KL Rahul, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, Shreyas Iyer, Rishabh Pant, Ravindra Jadeja, Hardik Pandya. So these 7, definitely these 7 would be in that playing 11 more often than not in the World Cup. And then you have these 4 bowlers with Natarajan being fit. I think definitely he might be an option. With Bhuvneshwar Kumar coming back after injury, doing reasonably well. Bhuvneshwar Kumar, Natarajan, then you have Shami, and it will be Washington Sundar and Yajuvendra Chahal. With Jadeja getting in the side, I think either of them will play, either Washington Sundar or Yajuvendra Chahal. So I think Norman, these 7 batsmen are more or less settled for me. And until and unless some drastic thing happens, if someone gets injured or some are deep in form in the IPL, then you might see some other players getting in. But I don't think there would be any disturbance as of now with this top 7 batting order with Jadeja coming in. once he's fit.
Okay. All right.
Do you think that they'll pick?
I agree with what Sebastian is saying. I see what you're saying, Chris, but I still maintain you're playing for your country. Put your best 11 on in the order that you wish to be best suited, and you don't experiment in a match which represents your country. Period. Unless you are desperate, unless you are needing to do something because it's not working, then fine. Okay. I'll go back to the 5th match, and let's say it goes to 2-2, which I'm predicting quite strongly now. If it goes to 2-2, what's the Indian batting lineup for that match?
Well, it'll be similar to what it was today. I don't see it being much different. I don't know what they'll do with KL Rahul. I honestly think they'll stick with Ishan Kishan at 4. I think Kohli will go back to 3.
He didn't bat 4 today.
No, but I think that he will. I think that he'll end up at 4. I really do. I think Kohli has to bat 3.
Why did he play 4 today?
Because he got runs in the last game. Kohli's set a precedent. I think he's captained in 41 games or something. He's sacrificed his number 3 slot 22 times. Done it to Suresh Raina. He's done it to Sanju Samson. He's done it to there is a precedent that Kohli does drop down to 4 when he should be batting at 3, regardless of anything. He's their best player. He needs to be facing as many balls as possible. But
okay. I'll give you the reason why. Virat Kohli hasn't scored a century in T20 cricket because he's not going in early enough. Okay, you could even be bold to say that he could open and he'll score a massive century. And I know it's a danger exposing him as an opener, but we are talking about 20 overs here, and a man of this person's class has not yet scored an actual T20 100 because he's not batting early enough. If you look at the people that have scored centuries in T20 cricket, that is Aaron Finch, Rohit Sharma, I think Guptill, and even McCullum. They're where have they batted? Where have they batted?
Yeah, they all faced the most balls. Yeah.
Sebastian, do you understand my point? I actually think if you really want to take the bit between the teeth and play a team that's going to win more matches than they're not, is actually, you would argue, to risk someone like Kohli early on in the innings. I know a bowler like Mark Wood might do him.
I have a point, Norman. I have a fact point is that for a tournament like a World Cup, which is quite long, more than a month, what happens if someone gets injured? What happens if some of your top player gets injured? Then all of a sudden you get in someone new who has not played international cricket, who has not been tried, and then you send him in a tournament like the World Cup. Then you have got totally wrong. That is the reason I think this series has been looked at to try a few comments. The same applies to England as well.
But the Aussies have done it as well. The Aussies did it in their recent series against New Zealand. They rested players.
New Zealand, yeah.
Look at the damn result of that. I'm particularly annoyed with Australia's performance against New Zealand.
You're bringing play. Debassis is totally right. You've got the days of having one team of 11 is gone. You have a squad. England. The reason England won the World Cup is because 2 years before the World Cup they said we've got a squad of 15.
I need to defend myself up front here. I did not say you have 1 to 11, leave it. I'm talking about, in particular, the top 4 batting positions. Yeah. In particular, you can change the number of bowlers and batting compositions as you've described, and you might put more spinners, more pace depending on the wicket. I get that. That's naturally logical. But your top 4 batters should be stable.
But what happens if one of your top 4 batters gets injured? Or he has a sudden dip in form?
No, you have to deal with it. Correct.
Yeah, but do you chuck a guy in that's never played, he's carried drinks and never played before? Do you give him
that's taking
a series
too much
like this
pressure on him?
Games?
Yeah, I think the IPL will be a great stamping ground for all of that, and that's.
But it's
where
not a World Cup.
Well,
it's not international cricket.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm thinking a certain way. That's my
I don't think we're disagreeing with you. I think we're just saying India's priority this year is winning on home soil that 2020 World Cup, and if they have to lose this series in order to be in prime form and know their best side, they don't care, and England won't care either. Owen Morgan said in press conference, he said, "I want us to play on slow turning wickets because that's what the World Cup is going to be on." and we need practice on it. He said, I'm not fussed about the result in this series. If my team come out as a better side and we're in a better position to win a World Cup, then that's good for the side. And they're going into every game wanting to win. India are desperate to win every game, but it's a bigger picture. If Ishan Kishan goes and plays 3 games, let's face it, if India had picked their best side, he wouldn't have played in this series. You know, it would have been KL Rahul, Rohit Sharma would have played every match. And Ishan Kishan, you'd have no clue if he was any good. He'd have a good IPL, he's a great player, but all of a sudden in the World Cup, you know, would you pick him having never played before? Or are you going to say, well, he played 3 games against the best side in the world, England, got a 60 really well. We've got a bit more confidence in him. He's going to be more confident because he's done it. So you're blooding young guys in, and it's. You know, I get both sides, and I'm somewhere in the middle. But let's face it, that side India put out there good enough to win a game of cricket. It's just.
Okay. There's a couple of factors here. There's a logical thought going on in what you're describing. But again, I'll go back to Ishan Kishan for a minute. How did he bat in his first match when he came into this series? He got.
He has nothing to lose. He has nothing to lose.
Let me finish. You're not letting me finish. You're not giving me a chance. Okay, my thought is he came in and he did really well. Okay, you can work 2 ways. You can be underprepared for a World Cup, or you can be a surprise factor that shows your wares. And sometimes a team could not be aware of a certain batter's ability in that format and may not prepare for that player, may not know what he is, and it comes out as a surprise packet. I rather like that more.
Ishan Kishan isn't an opening bat. I know he opened and he did well, but consistently he will score more runs in the middle order. He's not even going to open in the IPL. It's going to be Rohit Sharma and Quinton de Kock.
But he opens for the state side, Jharkhand. He opens for the state side, Jharkhand, and he did reasonably well.
I think the reason he opened yesterday in the second game was because England opened with Adil Rashid in the first game, and they wanted to counteract that by sending in a left-hander, so they had to do something different. Look at today. Ishan Kishan doesn't open. Adil Rashid opens a bowling because it turns away. So I think it was a tactical thing as much as anything to open the batting with Ishan Kishan. It paid off, and it worked brilliantly. I guarantee if Ishan Kishan had opened the batting today, Adil Rashid would not have opened the bowling. So it was a tactical thing as much as anything. And he's going to score more runs for India and in the IPL batting at 4 than he would opening. It paid off. It's like sending Sam Curran in the IPL to open the batting. He got 50 odd in one game for Chennai. It doesn't mean he's going to do it regularly or consistently there. So,
Chris, you're making all this logic to what you think, but I disagree. You don't put a batting order because a bowler might bowl against you or not. That is,
of course you do. That's what. It's a tactical thing.
But tactical or not tactical. I'm not going to pick a side and keep changing my batting order because someone may or may not bowl against me. That is absolutely.
I guarantee that was in the thinking. I
don't agree with it. I would not coach that way. I wouldn't be going, oh my God, this bloke might bowl, might change my batting order like a yo-yo. That is complete nuts. I'm sorry, I don't agree with that.
It happens.
It's going to fail. It's going to fail more than it's going to be successful.
It didn't fail the other day, though.
No, I'm talking about, and I have every right to say I'm a bit annoyed that you're giving me your logic because I disagree with that vehemently. I would never do that. I wouldn't be picking myself on who might bloody well bowl against me. Oh my God. Where does the coaching manual tell you that you pick a batting side based on who might bowl against you? Oh, that's just
all sides do it. Well, they will do it. Glenn Maxwell opens a bowling in 2020s occasionally because there's a left-hander comes in. You know, they all do it. They change their off-spinner to come in if a left-hander. How many sides in 2020 cricket open the bowling an off-spinner because there's a left-hander there?
Okay. The Australian batting lineup has been talking about this left-hand, right-hand mumbo-jumbo for years, and it continuously doesn't work. Why? Because they keep relying on it, and they're mentally so drawn towards it. We had 2 left-handers in Hayden and the likes of Justin Langer. We've had combination with their 2 right-handers as well, and we've been equally successful. I'm talking.
It's more so in one-day cricket. It's not as much in Test cricket. Doesn't play a factor, but opening the bowling with a spinner.
Any cricket.
In white ball cricket, sides change their tactics. You know, when Chris Gale opened the batting in the one day in the World 2020 final in India, Joe Root opened the bowling, got him out because it's turning away from the bat. Ishan Kishan opened the batting the other day because they thought Adil Rashid will open the bowling the other day and it will make England do something different, and it did, and it worked. And I'm not saying it's right, but that plays a massive part in tactics. If Ishan Kishan had opened today, Adil Rashid would not have opened the bowling. I guarantee that, as sure as there's a hat on my head. It's just part of the game. It's why these captains. Just why these captains.
I agree with Chris to a certain extent. Means had Ishan Kishan opened the batting, otherwise it definitely wouldn't have started bowling for England.
Okay.
Which in a way is right, because we have seen Washington Sundar being opening the bowling for his franchise in IPL and also in a few T20 internationals for India. So it depends on who is batting for your opponent, who is going out to bat or going out to open the batting for your team. So you cannot. You need to be flexible. You need to be flexible in this format, Norman.
So how flexible are you when a batter's padding up and he's about to walk out in the middle, and you have Ishan Kishan walking out with his pads on, and then at the actual rope around the pitch, he decides 2 foot from walking out to walk back in and allow another batsman in. Does it mean the bowler who's about to be throwing the ball will quickly throw it to another bowler?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
definitely.
That is because during the team meetings, definitely
I'd love to see
it might have been discussed.
Happened today.
Team meetings, it definitely would have been discussed.
Adil Rashid didn't bowl. They kept Adil Rashid off until Rishabh Pant got out. Rishabh Pant got out because he's good. He bowled an over at him, but then he came back when Pant got out. And look at Axar Patel in the first one day. I called it before the first game. I said Axar Patel will play and he will open the bowling because Jason Roy doesn't like a left arm spinner turning it away from him, and he hasn't played since.
I'm not denying that. I'm not
denying. This is why Kohli and Morgan are the best two captains in the world, because they think these tactics. It's next level, like meta tactics. It's
well. Let's have some fun now, and we should have the cameras fixed on the side of the pitch and watch them. I'm being flippant now, just sort of mimic certain batsmen about to go out to bat and watch the bowlers throw the ball to another bowler for a couple of minutes before the game starts. I'm being flippant, but it sounds to me that that's the way that you could head if you wanted to muck everybody up. I don't find this as cricket anymore. I'm losing my enjoyment of seeing this happen.
It's a different form of cricket. That's 2020 cricket for you. You want it to be.
I know that.
It's more tactical. There's more in it. It's just a different format, and I don't prefer it to Test cricket, but you get stuck into it and you see it is what it is, and it's brilliant for what it is. But these tactics do happen, and it's as much in the head as anything. And I do believe that
you need to be ahead in this game. In this format, you need to be ahead. If you are not ahead of the game, you are at the losing end, and invariably you are at the losing end more often than not. Because you need to have a thinking gap, and you need to think ahead of the game if you are to be successful in this format. I'm not talking about Test cricket. I'm not talking about one day as well. But when you talk about T20 cricket, you need to be ahead of the game. If you are to win consistently, then you need to be ahead of the game with your plan A, plan B, plan C.
Okay, I'm perhaps a fundamentalist about my cricket, and I don't appreciate this. I don't think it shows to me. Okay, then my answer is to open with Virat Kohli, because he doesn't care if it's spinning away or into him. He'll be hitting you out of the ground very quickly if he has everything go his way, and he'll score centuries.
India better side of him batting at 3 and opening with Rahul and Sharma, without a doubt. Hence why he bats at 3.
Okay, so why hasn't he scored a century at this level? He scored the most runs.
Well, probably because he does very well chasing, and a lot of the time
he's the highest scorer in this format. He's the highest scorer in this format.
94. Yeah, as a total of runs.
In T20 cricket as well, he's the first batsman to score 3,000 runs.
Did I say that's not what I'm saying? I'm talking about if he
batted early. Why not open the batting with Virat Kohli? But then he has got to 3,000 runs batting in at number 3 or number 4. Then what is the need of getting into open the batting?
Then he would have 4,000 runs if he opened the batting.
But he hasn't scored 100 because they've had really successful opening batters who get off to a good start, and Kohli comes in when a platform is set. He's not coming in at 10 for 1 or 4 for 1, and often he's chased. He averages over 100 chasing. You're not chasing big scores. If he's chasing 150, 160 and he's getting 70 not out, 80 not out, he just hasn't needed to get 100. I'm sure if you look at the games, he could have got 100 in. A lot of them are chasing. But you've had Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul at the top of the order for a lot of it, and they more often than not are setting a 30-40 for naught platform, and then it's really difficult to get 100 batting at 3. But there's no doubt that India, and it's blatantly obvious from their selection in this series, that they see KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma as the opening batting pair in that T20 World Cup. It's they've rested Sharma because he's a guaranteed, and they're trying desperately to get KL Rahul into some form. And he'll go in the IPL, and I hope he scores runs. I really like KL Rahul. I'm not biased towards him, and I think that it's clear looking at his record that he's probably the best opening bat they've got with Sharma, and it's quite clear that they're desperately trying to get him into some form in this series and for the World Cup, because I guarantee that first game he'll be opening the batting with Rohit.
We're turning a conversation and keeping a batting order stable into a Rahul comment. I have not said. I actually think that's the most sensible thing that they've done, even though he hasn't batted well. They've kept.
I'm saying in general, there's been a lot of talk about the Indian side, and he's probably been the one talking point. Another interesting one that I was going to ask Debasis about, Chahal. What are your thoughts on Chahal?
I think you might see a change in the next match. With Akshar Patel might well be given a nod ahead of Chahal because. Obviously, he was a bit unfortunate. He was a bit unlucky with Kohli dropping that catch. But then this happens to anyone. But then I would not be surprised if you see someone like Akshar Patel getting a chance ahead of Chahal in the next match, because on any given day, Washington Sundar is a better batsman than Chahal. So if you play Chahal, then you are especially in this format, you need bowlers who can give you quick runs. Deepak Chahar is also not bad choice, because he can play his long handle as well as Shardul Thakur. So I think I won't be surprised if Akshar Patel gets a nod ahead in the next match for India.
I think the problem is, and if you look at the most successful spinners, and you actually, I think it's a disadvantage this series for Chahal. He's literally being directly compared to Rashid, who in my opinion is comfortably a better bowler. He has more variations. Chahal doesn't really have a googly. He doesn't vary as much. Wrist spinners are premium. There's a reason why wrist spinners they take so many wickets. And I think the problem is India's bowling attack is that Akshar Patel doesn't offer much different. He's a finger spinner that bowls quite quickly and quite straight, doesn't turn it loads. Whereas I think Chahal will be better if they did bring that 6th bowling option in, because I think it takes the pressure off a little bit. At the moment, he has to bowl 4 overs regardless of what happens. He has to bowl 4 overs. In that second game for England, the first game, Rashid bowled 3 overs. Seamers bowl well. It doesn't matter. There's no pressure that he has to bowl it. So I think that they will persist with Chahal just because wrist spinners are a premium, aren't they? They take their wicket takers, and you don't mind them going 8 or 9 and over, because there's every chance they take 2 or 3 wickets. That they do go for runs. And there's another couple of leggies, isn't there? There's Chakravarthi, I think, is a leg spinner.
He's not in the side. He's not in the side. He has failed the fitness test, so he's not in the side.
What are your thoughts on the fitness side of things? Is it? We spoke about this. Everyone in the comments are saying that Kohli's rubbish for having it in place, and my point to Norman was, because it was just us two yesterday, if you know that there's a fitness test and you've been picked to play for your country, pass the fitness test, do what you can. It's not like it's a mystery. He's not rocked up, and in 5 minutes, he's not rocked up with his bag on his shoulder, and they said in 5 minutes you're doing a fitness test. If you don't pass, you're going home. He would have probably known for the last 4 or 5 months that there's a chance you're going to get called up to play for India. I'm sure he'd have been told that you're in the mix, and he would have known that there's a fitness test and this is what you have to do to pass. So do whatever you can to pass that test so you play for your country.
Yep.
And it applies to everyone. It applies to everyone.
Yeah.
Whoever, you might be a big player, but then you need to pass a fitness test to walk into this Indian side, because that is the need of the hour. That is why this current Indian team is so very fit. Means when you compare this Indian side with the other sides of yesteryears, you see this is a damn good side when you talk about the fitness and the fielding aspect. I think Kohli had, it's all because of Virat Kohli, because he had ensured that everyone, whoever is been picked to play for the country, has the same fitness standard, which is fair enough.
Definitely.
I mean, he's been fantastic for Indian cricket. Virat Kohli has lifted the team's performance both through fitness and practice to another level.
The problem I have with it, as if I'm a professional cricketer, and for Indian fans, forget that he's a mystery spinner. If you don't care enough to be fit and to pass a fitness test, do you really care? Are you that bothered? Like, what does it tell you about how much desire does he have to play for his country, that he would have known about this test? He would have known it's coming. Like, I don't believe that he's been called up 5 minutes before and they've said you've got a test in an hour. He probably would have known for 4 or 5 months that he's in the mix. He's at a good IPL.
Yeah. And the thing is that he missed the Australian tour because of the same fitness issue.
Yeah, he's had 4 months after that.
It is very lackadaisical on his part, because he knew that he was picked for the T20 Indian side for the Australia series, but he did not. He had some fitness issues, so he did not make it to that flight to Australia. And here also he was picked in the T20 side, and he fails the fitness test. So
it shows a lot about character, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm with Kohli. If he was playing for the West Indies, look at Rakeem Cornwall, he probably would have played, because they don't have a billion people to pick from in the West Indies. You know, their player pool is a lot. India have such an embarrassment of players to pick from. Every kid in India, every bloke in India would give an arm and a leg to play for that country. And the fact that he's had 6 months at least, I don't think they expect him to be Usain Bolt. I think that he's clearly fairly unfit. I think that he's clearly, and what does that say? If I'm captain of the side and a guy clearly isn't bothered about getting fit to pass a test, I don't want to take him out. I don't want to take him over the trenches with me. Sure, that shows as much about his attitude as anything, in my opinion. So I completely get why Kohli is putting his foot down, and I'm all for it.
Well, I mean, the good example about fitness is Rohit Sharma. He is, by the very nature of his physique, someone who's not exactly superbly fit, but he's worked at it very, very hard. And despite the fact that he's very talented, has also improved his fitness level. And I think that's an example of that. But look, I'm probably a bit old school, so I don't mind this. And please don't take this wrong. I'm not related to this team right now, but I've seen too many players that haven't been exactly perfectly fit.
David Boone, Matthews,
Arjuna Ranatunga, his very good friend, Arjuna Ranatunga.
Arjuna Ranatunga was the captain of the World Cup team in 1996. They won the World Cup against a very hot Australian side.
And do you expect him to be in the Sri Lankan side at this age?
Sorry?
Do you expect him to play in the Sri Lankan side in this era?
Arjuna
Ranatunga? No?
I'll tell you what, if he captains the side well, sits himself at first slip, takes catches at first slip, and gets runs by hitting the way he did, I'd have him any day.
It's actually what Kohli's putting his foot down with Chakravarti, is that how he's pronounce it? Is similar to what Owen Morgan is doing with Alex Hales. In a way, Alex Hales, from the information I've got, Alex Hales failed a drugs test about 3 years ago. Owen Morgan said, "We'll give you another chance. If you let us down, you won't play again. Can you give me your word that you will not let us down again?" Hales gave him his word. Went out, failed another drugs test, and Owen Morgan has just said that's it. So it's very similar to Kohli, the fact that he's got his line, and if you don't pass your test or if you let the captain down, you don't play. And I disagree with Hales. I don't know too much on the fitness side of things, but massive respect.
Has he not done well in the Big Bash League? Normal, Alex Hales
smashed it.
Yeah,
he's one of our best players. He would be in the side now if he was available. Owen Moore, he's not playing because we haven't picked him, not because he's not.
Because I have been following the England press conference. There's every press conference now and then there's a question on Alex Hales, whether he's going to be picked for the T20 World Cup side or not.
He's not picked in the side at the moment because the hierarchy, the coaching staff, selectors, and Owen Morgan, he let them down. he failed 2 drugs tests after they gave him another chance. So it's similar to Kohli and the fitness. He's saying that I don't want guys like that in my side, and I have respect for it. I don't agree with it with Hales, but I understand. I understand why they're doing it. It's going to help Owen Morgan this series that Jason Roy's found some form. Josh Butler got runs today, so there's no question marks. If they'd both gone like Kerr Rahul and gone 0-0-1, 3-4, then the press and all the pundits will be saying, why isn't Alex Hales playing? At the moment, the batters are doing okay, no questions asked. So Kohli is his captain, and he sets his out. He wants who he wants, and if the guy can't be bothered to pass a fitness test, why would you want him playing for you?
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Do you then say, I'm sorry to say this, but are you saying then the lesser sides will play anyone if they're the best player available, regardless whether they're fit?
Well, I think there's precedent for that, and they have to. They don't have a choice. I guarantee now, if Rohit Sharma didn't pass his fitness test, he probably would still be playing for India. I don't believe that. I think
no. If Rohit Sharma do not pass his fitness test, definitely he is also not picked for the side.
Okay, that's good, and that's even better.
This is what the Indian team is all about at this time. Whoever you may be, whoever you are, but you need to pass the fitness test to walk into the Indian side, to walk into the Indian playing 11. Means
other sides
standard.
Other sides don't have a choice, Norman. West Indies don't have a choice to pick these guys. It's not. They don't have an embarrassment of riches that India have, that Australia have, that England have, and there still will be fitness tests there. But do you think Rakeem Cormer would pass India's fitness test? Probably not. He's probably quite fit, but they don't have an option, and that's why cricket's struggling.
I don't think he's quite fit.
That's what I mean. That's the point.
He walks up to the pitch and throws the ball, and he plays it firstly. He's not out of the boundary chasing balls.
The West Indies don't have the luxury. They don't have 58 spinners that India.
I love having players in the side that are not fit, that play well and win games, like a Ranatunga or Corner. I love it. I'm sorry. I'm too old-fashioned like that.
Cricket's changed. Freddie Flintoff said that when he started his Test career, they would have a beer at lunch in a Test match. David Boone would have done the same. The game's changed. It's now you've got to go out and bat for 5 hours in Test match in 40 degrees in India. You're letting yourself that you're not performing at your best if you're not physically fit and mentally fit, and that's the
romance having Jeff Thompson coming from a pub when he's 12th man and running side onto the pitch with the wrong shoes and wrong headgear and playing. I miss that. I'm sorry. I think that's.
I guarantee if Jeff Thompson was playing now, he would be fit and he would do what he had to play for Australia. If Jeff Thompson was playing now and rocked up from the pub, he wouldn't be playing because that's how it goes.
He's not playing now, and he's the best bowler in the world ever. I don't care who you throw up against him. Mark Wood, Smud. I don't care who they are.
Quickest bowler in the world ever.
Jeff Thompson was the greatest, quickest, and that makes him. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I'm being cheeky here, but I'll be honest with you. I'm a little bit sad that we don't have that, because there are people out there watching who are in that same condition that will adore a person excelling at that level.
But standard of cricket is better now, generally because of it, in my opinion. It's a better game. If you look at cricket as a whole, there's less characters. Both of us are the same.
Let's agree to disagree, okay? Because I love the romance of cricket.
But you're talking cricket as a whole with the characters. Botham was the same. He wouldn't, Botham wouldn't play now. You wouldn't get away with it now. And the standard of cricket, if you're just talking purely cricket as the game, the standard is probably better consistently across the board now because everyone is fitter, because they're healthier. The game something to look at without those characters is a lesser game for it, but the standard.
But do you think the Australian bowling lineup is at its peak now because they rotate, they rest players after 8 overs, or they don't let them bowl so many overs in a day and their preparation? That's actually now helped Australia. I'd argue that they've become predictable and they're actually more injury prone because they're highly strung in the levels of fitness. And there's an element of relaxing your body, but also sometimes you have to test your body to bowl flat out the nets weeks before the match to show that you can handle those conditions when you are fatigued and you are stressed. To be so metronome with your bowling regimes leading into a test match has actually affected Australia, because they are bowling more than 8 overs a day, but when they have to bowl 40 in a match or
There's
something.
nothing to do with fitness. I think that's down to conditioning, and they're not bowling as much, just as a physical fitness. Jeff Thompson didn't ever get injured because he went down to the pub and had 6 pints on a kebab the night before a test match. You know,
I disagree with you. I disagree with you
and so is Kapil Dev. And so is Kapil Dev. He never missed a match. He never missed a match in his
it's because they used to go
career with an injury.
It's because they bowled and bowled and bowled, and they were physically.
And he never bowled a no ball. And he never bowled a no ball. Kapil Dev never bowled a no ball in his career, throughout his career.
Ultimately, those guys were good cricketers because they were talented cricketers. It had nothing to do with the fact they used to go out drinking. Ian Botham wasn't the best cricketer arguably ever.
Okay, Chris, I'm honest right there. I know where you're heading with this, and we've gone through this. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but I'm saying to you now that players that have played in the game in their match conditions, that are tested in their match conditions, are better off than someone that's been metronome trained for weeks on bowling 8 overs every 2 days.
Of course, I agree. We've spoken about this before. I completely agree, but that's nothing to do with. That's down to grassroots. And in England, if you're under 15, you can only bowl 4 overs or 5 overs in a spell. You can only bowl like 10 overs a day. That's where it comes in, because as a kid, or you don't play county cricket, you're just not used to bowling the level of overs that you need to bowl. And back in the 80s, when Thompson and Lilly were all playing, they would have just bowled and bowled and bowled and bowled and bowled until they literally fell over. And next day they'll come back and bowl and bowl and bowl again. Now, kids don't do that. That's why they get injured. It's nothing to do with their lifestyle or their physical fitness, because I guarantee Cummings and
I think there needs to be a balance between our conversations. What you're saying and what I'm saying, they need to be a better. They need to tweak it so it's not so overly geared to being a superhuman fitness person and not being able to.
I don't think it has anything to do with that. And they're not asking them to be superhuman fitness. They're asking to pace to pass a relatively standard fitness test. They're not asking them to run a marathon. The yo-yo test is basically a bleep test where you speed up and you slow down. You can train for it. You can prepare for it. Because I've done a yo-yo test. It's hard, but you don't. You know, they're not asking them to jump through fire hoops and do the 100-meter hurdles here. All they're asking to do is to be a decent level of fitness. And I guarantee Tomo, all these guys would pass that test because in their prime they were all fit and they all do it.
Tomo was an exceptional athlete naturally.
That's what I mean. And I guarantee if you'd said to Tomo, you can go to the pub for lunch, whatever you want to do, but tomorrow morning you've got a fitness test. If you don't pass it, you won't play. I guarantee he would have turned up and he would have passed that test because he wanted to play for his country.
Okay. There's a certain player that plays women's cricket who is one of the best bowlers in the world, who adopts the process of going out late and having a drink. Anyway, all right, Debus is waving. Go to Bus.
Yeah, Norman, I need to leave now because it's.
Of course, Debus. I appreciate big time what you've done.
15 now.
And we may all finish up because we've had a great chat and I really appreciate this. The reality is England are in the ascendancy of 2-1. They deserve to be there at the moment. Let's hope that for the series it becomes 2-2. We have a cracker of a 5th match. It's been sensational viewing. I must say there's less people watching now because it's probably very late, but we've still had a very good audience and I appreciate, Chris. You're magnificent. And I'll have a chat to you, Chris, before you go offline, if you don't mind. Anyway, and Debus, thank you for your time. I appreciate it all greatly. Thank you, viewers. This is Eyes on.
Thank you, Norman. Thank you, Chris.
It's always a pleasure, mate. Always enjoy it.
See you soon. Okay, see you, Debus. See you, everyone.
See you guys.